Hello, my name is Alicia Ford. I'm the Business Development Manager for the Belcara Group. Today, I'm sitting down with the Belcara Group company's President and CEO, Steve Cope of Silver Viper, so he can provide a corporate update and answer some common investor questions for you. So, Steve, it's been a little while since we made a video speaking directly to investors. Can you outline what's to come at Silver Viper over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really busy time for the company. We've been, a lot of kind of weird things have come up that we've had to work on as far as moving all of our physical core right now to a new facility in Hermosillo that's much larger and bigger, to give us room for when we resume drilling here over the next 6 to 12 months to store the core in Hermosillo. Been working with landowners and various different things, but coming up over the next 6 to 12 months, we should be starting a drill program. We should be updating the resource, a number of catalysts for investors and the company, and hopefully, increasing, I fully expect, we already know we've increased the resource. So we'll see how big that can grow, and hopefully moving forward, we can start to attract some of those larger companies to continue to want to get involved with Silver Viper.
Okay, great. So prior to our May financing, we saw a small surge in silver prices, which affected our and many other juniors' share price. Following our life placement, we saw a little drop in the share price. What do you think caused that?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess one of those frustrations of the lifestyle placement when you have shares that are free trading right off the bat, that you're gonna attract the warrant strippers into that type of placement. I think that there are adjustments that need to be made to that style placement where the share price is locked out until the placement is closed, but the exchange so far has pushed back on that and been adamant that they won't do that. But that's what's going on. Guys come in and they participate in the saying, oh, look at this, we were at 14 cents, so now it's a 10-cent life placement, and we're instantly trading at 8 cents at open the next day, and then all of a sudden the placement becomes harder and harder to do. We rebounded for about a week of that back up to 10, 11 cents. But that's what's going on, is these guys come in, they're either existing shareholders that are selling shares they have and then instantly subscribing into the placement, or they're subscribing and selling shares or shorting the shares. I mean, there's any number of ways that guys can do it. And then they do it just to sit on the warrants, which there's no financial exposure to. You just get free ride on the warrants, hoping if a company becomes successful, and guys will even take a loss on the shares. They'll sell it down to 8, 9 cents and take a loss on the shares, hoping that those warrants ultimately become worth something, and they can use the loss as a off their capital gains or whatever tax wise. But it's a frustration. I typically we want to stay away from the life placements, but I had bankers in my ear promising me they were going to get that placement done, which to the full max, and so we agreed to do it this time. But till the exchange works things out, I'm going to stay away from life placements moving forward and stick with traditional private placements or a broker deal or bought deals or any of the other number of avenues that you can raise capital and that are more traditional and come with that hold paper, and it's more secure, and your share price doesn't get hit as hard.
And can you discuss some of the restrictions regarding life placements, like how the use of proceeds can be used and how that might affect our drilling coming up for the rest of the year or the
Yeah,
following?
yeah. I mean, it's something that investors aren't used to yet. This is a new avenue that they've kind of come out with, and people don't fully understand all the different processes. And I think a lot of companies don't understand all the different avenues. I've seen a couple life placements announced that, from what we've talked to with lawyers and the way things are supposed to work, I don't know how they're doing a life placement and they're promising a work program and raising, like 3 or 400K in a life placement. And that doesn't make any sense. But from everything we've done, the research we've done, what our lawyers who are very familiar with the whole process have done, part of the minimum requirement of a life placement that has been put on it, and why non-accredited investors can participate, is the company has additional reporting requirements, but you're promising in that placement to, you have to lay out in the paperwork exactly what a year's worth of working capital for the company looks like, and what your minimum spend would be without a drill program, and what just to keep the lights on, to make your tax payments, to make your property payments, whatever else is owing. And so you have a minimum raise that you have to keep towards that year working capital. And in our case, because we had the larger property payment that was due in June, and taxes on the land, and salaries and G&A and everything else that's ongoing within the company, we had a min there that we put in at 2 million just to be comfortable with everything for that year's worth of working capital, and then everything above and beyond that was going to go towards a drill program. And that's where that 2 million comes from. And I just don't think a lot of people understand. I mean, we had people within the company who didn't fully understand it at the time, and we're having to walk through and explain why there was this minimum, because a lot of people have never done one, and there haven't been that many done, in the market yet. So people are getting comfortable with how everything works.
Mhm. And so we just announced our final payment, and now we have 100% ownership of the mineral concessions covering La Virginia Silver Gold Project. So what does this mean for the company going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big landmark for the company. Owning the project out 100% makes it far more attractive for the major miners and the partners that we'd be bringing in on the project. They don't like to share with anyone, and they don't like to worry about, what the end game is to get to 100%. So in our case, we now own 100% that we already own from Pan American and that part of the transaction, and then the internal claims where the bulk of the work has been done and the resource and everything is located. We own that finally 100% as well, and that's huge. I mean, it's the first time the company has owned 100% of the entire project anywhere. I mean, even going back to when Mine Finders and Pan American controlled the project, they always had option payments on those internal claims. So for someone to finally own the whole land package and to piece the whole thing together and have access to 100% of the resource is huge. And then moving forward, I mean, it's just going to make us that much more attractive when it comes time to sell the project.
Mhm. And so Silver Viper is also owed money by the Mexican government. Can you explain this and the cash inflow that we might expect?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a tough question, and under this government regime, it's been harder to get that money back. But this comes from your EVA taxes, your VAT tax, depending what you want to call it. But basically, you're constantly, all the stuff that we're doing, you're accruing that over the life of a company, and for various companies have been successful getting it back, others haven't. Some of it comes down to weird accounting lingo where you're at as a company. But when you've been established and been operating in the country as long as we have, you normally are recovering it. And so under the AMLO regime, it's been harder to get that money back, but we're seeing companies are starting to get money back. Some have been very successful in getting it back. And so we've hired a group that will work on getting that money back. We're owed about $2.5 million on that. Whether we get that all back or not, we'll see. And the way the groups that you hire work is they only get paid if they're successful in bringing the money back. So they take 12% of whatever they're able to bring back into the company. So we'll see hopefully over the next few months, we can start. Their plan is to start submitting, a month or 2 months at a time of what's owing, and we can start to bring back some of that cash. And I mean, if we do start to see that coming back in, that's easily a work program right there for the company without diluting or without having to go to the market to raise more capital. So fingers crossed, hopefully that money starts coming in. We're hearing the right things, and we'll see what it looks like moving forward. But that's a lot of capital to come back into the company that would produce a lot of hopefully really good results with the drill rig.
Mhm. Okay, so we're going to take a little turn and talk about drilling. So what are some crucial drill results that, new or old investors should know from La Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of key points. Obviously, our first major drill hole that we drilled at the company was just making a discovery at El Ruby into the high-grade breccia structure. When we first took over the project, we did the reconnaissance program at El Ruby on the back end of our drilling in the historic area where Mine Finders and Pan American focus made a brand new discovery, and that's become, the main event on the project so far. So that obviously was, something pretty interesting, and that El Ruby area and where it comes in significance is this project was meant to be, it was found by mine finders. They were looking for another Dolores mine, which they ultimately sold to Pan American for 1.4, 1.5 billion. And they went, they wanted to find another Dolores. And so they had a lot of success in their drilling and what they found. And they said, La Virginia is the lookalike for Dolores. What they hit was good, but it wasn't quite, the exact same materials as what you were seeing at Dolores. Now, when you move up to El Ruby and you start looking at what you're hitting there, now you're starting to stunningly look exactly like what the Dolores mine looks like. And so we make that discovery. Then we made an additional discovery of the broader low grade zone, the western zone, 100 meters to the west, seeing the footwall also having that broad low grade zone. And you start to see the potential for both open pit and underground mining at the project. You can go underground on these high grade breccia structures. You have these broad, long intervals that are at grades, higher than what the existing mines in the state are operating their open pit heap leach operations at. So it becomes the combination of those two types of different drill intercepts that have made the project and the, very attractive and opening the eyes and giving the potential of different ways moving forward when this thing ultimately gets mined. Now, looking forward to the future, obviously, people that have been following the story have heard me over and over again talk about the Quinton Henning model and when Crescat did their investment into the company, and that is when you have some of our intercepts, you'll see some material that's blasted up from depth, this sulfide material that's come from really deep in the zone, and you'll get half meter where you see the base metals spike up, but half meter on either side it's high grade gold and silver and anomalous base metals at best. So the model and where that comes in and what we need to test in the future is at depth in a deeper contact. Our mineralization and our favorable mineralization has occurred in the andesite package. Below that, we have the another package that's tight rock, doesn't allow for the fluids to spread out. So we still see mineralization. We still follow the zone into that system, but at the same time, it's down at depth where those sulfides have come from. And in the Quinton model, it's going to be, below the rhyolite package where these fluids come up and hit that tight rhyolite package. At that contact to whatever system is below that, you're going to get a big, broad blowout of mineralization. In his model, he thinks it's going to be a gold carbonate base metal system down there, and similar deposits around the world are multi-million ounce gold silver deposits with high grade, bonanza grades of base metals, copper, zinc. And so in those half meters, we see some of that material. Now it's going to be about finding where that contact is, where the best spot along that contact is to drill. And so that's deeper, more expensive drilling. But if you can hit that, I mean, that's a game changer for the company. And so that's obviously, hopefully, a future drill intercept or theory we can prove out. But we've also got a number of different exploration targets that are drill ready now. El Molino being the number one. The team is most excited about. We've seen higher grade surface sampling there than we saw at El Ruby before we drilled it. It's a number of breccia structures coming in tightly together, which have been our high grade structures that would be more of your underground targets. But if the footwall is like El Ruby, you could have a broad open pit target there as well. So that's something that's going to be tested when we do start our next phase of drilling. We're going to, we'll split that program between expanding the resource at El Ruby and then also doing a reconnaissance program at El Molino. So there's lots of different exciting stuff to come when we start drilling. We're pretty confident we're going to have a lot of drill success in those areas. There's a number of other areas that are drill ready now as well that have been producing some pretty nice high grade surface sampling, between kind of the historic area and El Ruby. El Oriental being one of those that I know the team's also excited about. Macho Libre, like there's so many targets. It's such a target rich environment in a system that runs for kilometers and kilometers. It's just vectoring in on where the best grades and widths can be. So moving forward, I fully expect multiple new discoveries on the project, expanding that resource, and then we'll see where we're at.
Okay. And so there's been quite a bit of drilling since our initial maiden resource. How much ounces approximately have we added to the resource since May 2021?
That one, I mean, I have to leave to the independent to do that calculation. that's the forward-looking statements. I certainly believe, just based on the drilling we did, we've expanded El Ruby by at least 300 meters to the south, strike length there, and filling in what was no mineralization in the open pit when the independent did our resource, to now that would be 300 meters to the south will be filled in to the pit, which is in itself great because you just start bringing down your strip ratios and other things on the modeling in that resource and just bringing in stuff that was already factored into the open pit. So that will add ounces. Obviously, gold prices and silver prices will increase ounces. One, it'll let you go and target areas that we drilled, but maybe were too isolated to be included into the resource before, and the underground resource in the historic area, or some of the stuff at El Ruby. But also let you bring in, you're going to lower the grade of the resource using, lower cutoffs because they become more economic, but you're going to add a lot of ounces. So, I mean, I don't know the specific number. I mean, a major threshold for us was to get over that 1 million gold equivalent ounces, and I would be surprised if we weren't over that already, just based on the drilling and using lower metals prices, if not quite a bit higher. But I don't get to influence that number, so I leave that one to the independent to come up with when we do finally do an updated resource and see where we're at, and some sensitivity tables and the things that will go into that. But it's certainly a lot higher than the 700,000 gold equivalent ounces we're at as of that last resource.
Mhm. And so you kind of touched on the significance of the geology, but what makes this so optimal for an open pit, and why would we want to go that route?
Well, the state itself, Sonora, is known for open pit heap leach mining. The majority of the mines in the state, it's just environmentally, just the temperatures and everything you get there, it is very optimal for open pit heap leach mining, which is, some of the cheapest cost, is the cheapest cost mining there is in the world for large scale mining, and it just becomes a big earth moving operation. So like I said, the discovery of the western zone and those broad intercepts, the average open pit heap leach mine in this state going back, as far as I can remember in the industry, is operating at about a half gram gold average grade, and they've been printing money at 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 gold. We're making a ton of money, and very attractive to all these miners to get involved. And a lot of the major miners have mines in the state. So, we're sitting there in our resource as it is now is, if you include the silver equivalent in that, and our metallurgy showed that we should recover the silver fairly well, leaching to the low grade silver, leaching very well. And the gold recovery is all over 90%. I mean, we're looking at almost a gram gold on its own, plus another half gram gold and silver on top of that. So if the average grade of these other deposits is a half gram, 0.6 grams open pit heap leach, and ours right now is sitting on an equivalent basis close to 1.5 grams, I mean, that's very attractive right off the bat. So then it becomes, okay, because these are big earth, it's just about finding more of that material to increase it, and hopefully growing that to where you're going to mine multi-million ounces of gold in the open pit heap leach part. And then, like I say, we have this vertical high grade breccia structure that goes down, and the potential for the deeper contact and everything else. And then you can transition to underground mining from the bottom of the pit, or from surface if you want to just mine that high grade breccia structure differently. And you've got a number of different targets in the area, and some of those targets are in steeper area that it's harder to open pit anyway. So again, there's potential for both style mining on the project. El Ruby, obviously that's what really drew our attention to it, was this high grade material, but then you had this broad low grade zone. The footwall of the main El Ruby structure is 20 to 80 meters wide depending on the section, and then 100 meters to the west you have another 100+ meter wide zone of that low grade mineralization that, I mean, I say low grade but high grade for open pit heap leach mining. So that's what kind of makes it special. And then just the amount of targets, that's one small portion of the project. If you go 4 or 5K to the north, you get up to the La Gloria target, which is a massive porphyry target on the project that again is, a different animal and things that could be going on. You've got El Molino to the east that starts to show the potential for a parallel trend on the project. You've got the historic area down where Las Guatas, Con Virginia, El Oriental, Macho Libre, and a bunch of other names, for people that have been following, that are different areas that we've sampled that are drill ready as well. And, each one of those targets has the potential to be another El Ruby or bigger, depending what you find. And so you start adding up all these different zones as you make discoveries, and you're on to a major, mining district, mining project that has the potential, I don't know, it has the potential to be a lot. If the deep target has the potential to be multi-million ounces, we're finding, El Ruby itself is 1,000,000+ ounces. The historic area could be 1,000,000+ ounces. You start to add ounces very quickly as you drill out and add in all these targets and make new discoveries. So it's very exciting to be a part of. I've been very proud of our team and what we've accomplished so far. And now it's just about, working through this market that we're in and getting back to drilling and adding those ounces to the resource.
Okay, great. And what kind of a drill program could be done for about $1 million?
Yeah, today's environment with assays, that's about a 5,000 meter program. Mexico's not overly expensive on the drilling costs, compared to other parts of the world. But and to include assays and get 5,000 meters done for $1 million, that's about pretty standard where we are in Mexico.
Okay, great. So now maybe we'll just wrap it up, and maybe what are some catalysts for investors to watch out for, and what can they expect from Silver Viper in the near future?
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at things in a number of different ways right now. Potentially, we've had groups approach us that are potentially interested in getting involved, whether that gives them a piece of the project or they just want to straight finance us, a joint venture. that we're open to suggestions, and we're going through and trying to figure out what the best deal for our shareholders will be on that front. With that would come work programs and money being spent on the project on the back end of any of those deals, and probably a much larger program than the $1 million if we do one of those type deals. So that is very exciting. As far as catalysts, I mean, one of the biggest ones is, when is the money going to start pouring again back into these junior exploration companies? We saw a little window at the start of the year when we did that last financing, but for the most part, I mean, you've got gold hitting all-time highs today, and silver is starting to creep up and certainly come into price points where silver becomes more economic. And you combine that with all the catalysts and the things that people are seeing all around, and why they're investing in gold and silver to begin with, and that there's this shortage of silver, and like you say, you've got gold at all-time highs, and investors haven't seen that in most of the equities, especially the junior equities. We're trading at 7-8 cents right now Canadian, with a market cap of 16-17 million, and you start to look at just the ounces that we have right now, and before metals prices ran, people were paying, if you're talking about silver equivalent, they were paying, around $1.50, $2 an ounce. Gold, $100 an ounce was kind of a standard. I mean, a company like Agnico Eagle used to have a slide that bragged about paying $130 an ounce US in the ground. And then because, after they take over and adding ounces, they make it worth $30 an ounce, that acquisition cost, because they had so many more ounces. So you start to even conservatively, before gold ran, if you're using $100 an ounce gold equivalent, I mean, that should be a 70 million market cap company just on that. And I think 100 is very conservative now, with gold at over $2,400 an ounce, and the amount of money that the gold producers are making on their deposits. I mean, you listen to some of the older guys in the industry, and it used to be a third of the valuation. So a third of the gold price was what the asset should be valued, a third was the acquisition cost, and then a third was the profit for the company. And so, I mean, at a third, you imagine if we were getting 800 an ounce in the ground on valuation right now, like that's the disconnect that's happened in this industry over the last 10 plus years, 20 years. So again, I mean, $100 an ounce, people have become accustomed to something in that neighborhood, but I think moving forward, especially as we finally get into a proper gold and silver bull market, you're going to see numbers paid on the ounces in the ground much higher than that. And again, we're trading at 16 million ounces and have 700,000 gold equivalent, and that's just gold and silver. There's no base metals included in any of that. About 60% of that is gold, 40% silver. And so the company is heavily undervalued, like most of our peers. I'm not going to say it's just our company, but that's the opportunity that exists for investors that are getting involved in this space right now, is you're able to buy companies that have resources like ours at such a discount to what they should be trading at, that as that money finally does some pouring back in the space, and you're seeing it coming into the seniors right now, and that's always what happens. It starts with the big producers and then it trickles down to the juniors. You're going to see 10x plus gains across a lot of these companies, or much higher, especially from where we're at today. So that's one of the biggest catalysts for investors, is just, when does that traction pick up and money start pouring in and people start placing their bets across all of these junior explorers. And in our case, with the silver exposure we have, there's not a lot of quality silver companies out there that have any exposure to silver. And that's one of the big leading ones with this transition of silver into an industrial metal, on top of being a monetary metal, behind gold. And that's never happened in any of these cycles. So it's another catalyst that's going to drive silver price even higher, and should start to close that historic ratio with gold and everything else going on with that. So again, I mean, I think the fact that we have that silver exposure in the number one silver producing country in the world is very important, and investors in our company should do very well. And then, the traditional catalysts, obviously on top of that, any new discoveries, updating the resource, these are all major, a potential joint venture or transaction on the project. These are all major catalysts for investors in our company moving forward.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the update, Steve.
Thanks, Alicia. No, it's always good. And thanks to all the investors for, their support over the years and following the company. And I think we're coming into a very exciting time in this industry, and for, us as a group. So I'm looking forward to what the next 12 months are going to hold for everyone.
Thank you for watching. For more information and for our investor presentation, you can visit our website at silverviperminerals.com, where you'll also find all of our social channels. For any questions, please feel free to email us at info@silverviperminerals.com.